Welcome to Natural Born Talents. Today's video is a continuation of the violet aura. I'd like to make a few things clear about this aura. I may have seemed a little bit harsh, but that's only for a special reason which I'd like to explain in this video. The violet aura is actually a fascinating aura. It's one of the oldest auras on the planet at this time. In its heyday, the Roman Empire was a great example of all the achievements, both good and bad, of this aura. I do not dislike this aura. I actually like it very much. No one aura is better than another. And the aura does not determine who you are or what your soul is. It only says what path that you are on. Having said that, this aura is very susceptible to ego. If you need more information on what ego is, you can look at the videos on ego or the videos on the devil's contract, which will give you more insight on how egos work. Other auras are also susceptible to ego, but it's this aura that can wield more power than any other aura in the aura spectrum at this time. So the previous video on this aura is not to condemn it, but is to warn. And the reasons for warning about this aura is that if you do take the path of ego, you cause a lot of destruction in its wake, and in the afterlife you have to pay a price that most of you will be very unwilling to pay. To clarify that, I can give you 3 examples on how destructive this aura has been, and 3 examples on how well it has worked. And the reasons for giving such a harsh view of this aura in the previous video was not aimed at the aura or even the individual. It was aimed at those and only those who choose to use the dark side of ego. Because of the way things are moving in the world today, 20 or 30 years ago, I might have made the video on violets very differently. It's the period of time that we're in now, the last days of ego, is why I made the video the way that I did. In human history, every time this period of the end of ego, the end of times, or whatever you want to call it, comes forth and reaches its peak, a lot of destruction and chaos follows. And the reason for that is the misuse of ego, which in these days is pretty much prevalent everywhere. Egotists of any aura will say that my life, my purpose, my reason for being is more valuable than anyone else's, and I will play God over their lives to prove it. What is okay for me is not okay for you. It's a self-preservation game that in the end only destroys everyone. So it is those who are in power that will cause the most damage to humanity at this time. It is of course not limited to the violet aura, but violets are indeed the most powerful aura of all the auras when it comes to ego. Now the days of ego may be ending anywhere from 10 to 100 years from now. I'm not sure on the exact date, and I'm very reluctant to make any kind of prediction in that area because they usually don't pan out well. However, I do know there are other worlds that do have existence of humanity without ego. They play very different games. The transition, as they call it, from the world of ego to non-ego is very painful and very destructive. And that's why I made that video that way. For those who are in power need to heed that, because the price that you pay for playing with ego too far, just for the sake of a privileged life or for money or for a narcissistic pursuit, is going to cause you a lot of problems in the end. Now, again, there are a lot of wonderful, very loving souls who have this aura, and I have nothing against them. It's the weaker ones, the ones that rely too much on ego, that will cause everybody, including themselves, in the end, a lot of pain, trouble, and destruction. Now let me give you the three examples. The best examples I can give you in history for the dark side of violets who used ego was in France. A little short Frenchman who was taking his army running around during the 19th century, causing havoc in Europe. The second violet aura came from Germany around the 1930s. Now, if you need a present-day example, there is a man who started a social media company, and it's the largest in the world to date, who has this aura. And as most of you know, social media has ruined and destroyed many people's lives. And that individual wields an enormous amount of power. Now, here's three examples that I've known in my personal life who have this aura, who used it very well because they got in control of the ego within themselves and refused to go to the dark side. One individual I know was a professor at a university, extremely intelligent, very talented in the laboratory while he was discovering new kinds of medicines and ways of curing and healing people. Another one that I know of was an individual who took his hobby, fishing, and made a business out of it that was geared towards only really fine equipment. He made a lot of connections throughout Europe and the United States, has a lot of people working for him, and does very well. And I don't know of anyone he has personally harmed in his life. Another individual I know of who turned out to be a rather gentle individual was a corporate president, and he took his company and helped dig his country out of financial mess it was in. And he used his vision to create something that benefited pretty much everybody in his country without the use of any kind of war or manipulation of stock markets or anything like that. He just got everybody to go into the right direction for that country and moved forward. Now, I could go on, but I think you get the idea. It's not the aura itself. This aura has a lot of weaknesses, but in the world of ego, it has a lot of power. Outside of the world of ego, it isn't so strong. This is vastly different, say, from the indigo aura, which is very, very intelligent in any time period in this world, or any dimension for that matter. That doesn't make them superheroes of any kind. It only means that they've completed the cycle of humanity from one end to the other. Sort of like the martial artist who starts off as a white belt, goes through all the training, becomes a black belt, starts to age and get old, and his black belt frays and starts to become white again. He or she has gone full circle. So is it with the human auras. If a person starts off as an orange, which is very close to be very animalistic, and ends up as an indigo, which is supposed to be very advanced aura, they've gone full circle. There are also levels of souls in the world: the young soul, the baby soul, the middle-aged soul, the very old venerable soul, and so on. This is not related to auras directly, because a baby soul can be a violet as well as a venerable old soul. And that's the point. It's the age of the soul, the choice of the soul. Venerable old souls know very well not to use ego because the price is too high. But on the other hand, a venerable old soul may want to come back as an orange, a violet, a indigo, any aura, just for the experience, or to learn something new within that aura. The problem is, if you misuse ego, not the aura, but the ego within the aura, too much, you don't come back, and that's the problem. And I'm making more videos on that in the Devil's Contract if you want to hear more about that. And again, I don't have any solid proof from you. This is all about my own personal experience dealing with these particular auras. I have heard from many people that when the day of ego ends, auras also go out the window because they're not needed anymore for the game. New games arrive, new ways of spiritual movement through humanity, and so on and so forth, on and on and on. Egos and auras are no longer needed. You're just yourself. But for those who have misused ego and abused their power, do not return to that world. They go somewhere else. And from my own personal experience, it's not a nice place. I don't recommend it. So again, if you do have this aura, I wish you the best. I have a lot of friends who have this aura who are wonderful people. Don't get me wrong on it. But be careful with ego. And I rib my friends and stuff all the time when their ego starts to show up. And they know, and they laugh at it, and they laugh at themselves because they don't take themselves serious. When they start to take themselves too serious, well, that's the first sign they're going in the wrong direction. And I also will point out there are other auras that are equally as destructive with ego. The green tan aura and the green by itself. Those two can also wield an enormous amount of power and be very, very destructive. There was a leader in Russia once who had one of those auras, and another one in England who had those auras who did not do too well. But again, it's the violet that is most tempted by ego. But having said that, I have seen ego in every single aura that exists, including the ones that usually aren't susceptible to it, like the indigo, the lavender, or the crystal. So I hope this clears up a few things and misunderstandings about the violet aura. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments section below. I have made a test on how to test your aura, and you can find that in this video here. I hope to remake most of these videos and improve upon them. I am also creating a separate channel for my Japanese listeners because the content of that is geared towards something else. But this channel will remain focused on the auras, the ghosts, the demons, the egos, the angels, and the many other spiritual experiences I've had in this life. Thanks again for listening. Hope to see you at the next video.